Hi everyone, it's Aga from EurekaCrystalBeads.com and I have another fun beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of the channel, and if you like the videos, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you always get to know when we're posting new content. Today we're going to be making this cute and very classy holiday set of bracelet and these tiny cute little earrings. First of all, let me tell you a bit about the materials that we're going to be using. First, you're going to need 2 shades of beads, and here I have Toho Treasures in the shade Sail on Snowflake and Galvanized Starlight. And this is Toho Treasures, but for later we're going to need just several Toho size 15 beads. And in addition to that, you're going to need chain, you're going to need jump rings, 6 of them to be exact. You're going to need a clasp for your bracelet, and studs or earring posts. Just remember to use those with a front-facing loop, because you want your earrings to hang straight up and not to the side. We are also going to be using tools, which is scissors, a needle, and you're going to need a thin needle. I have size 12, but you can also use size 13, 11, or even 10 will be alright. For thread, I'm going to be using KO thread, but you can also use Fireline, and in this case your creation is going to be a little bit more stiff, but not very much. So you don't need to use it, you can just use KO or 1G thread. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start with about half a wingspan of thread on my needle, which is if you hold the spool around the center of your body and you extend your hand, that's how much half a wingspan is. And I'm not going to cut the thread yet because I like to use the other end to finish off my work later on. Today's piece is going to be all about the brick stitch. And you've seen me show you how to do brick stitch in some of the previous projects, where I showed you how to finish off your bead embroidery projects with brick stitch. But this time it's just going to be brick stitch, no bead embroidery, no nothing, just brick stitch. So I'm going to show you how to start your piece in brick stitch, how to decrease, and how to increase as you're going. Okay, let's start. For this, I'm going to be using a design that I made, and I'm going to follow it starting in here, from these 2 beads. For brick stitch projects, you actually start with a ladder stitch. So I'm going to start by picking up 2 beads, which will be gold in my case, because the outline is going to be gold. So I'm starting with 2 gold beads, and I pull them all the way through the thread, and I go back through both of them. And then again, I go around, but this time I go through just 1 bead. And you can help yourself by turning the other bead, and they should end up something like this. And in my pattern I only have these 2. I start with these 2, and I'm not going to add the last one because this is where the beaded loop is going to be, to which I'm going to attach the chain. So I'm starting with these 2, and as you can see, the next row has 3 beads in it. So this is a good opportunity to show you how to increase in your brick stitch. If I want to increase or decrease as well, actually, when you start a new row, you take 2 beads. Brick stitch is all about going under this thread bridge that I created around here. And you just pull through. Now you have these 2 beads around here, but you're going to go through that second one like this. Then you pull tight, and that's how you increase. Now there's a third bead in this row, so I pick up one more gold bead, and this is important. So this is how you increase on this other end. When you end a row, you increase like this. You pick up one bead and you go through the last bead in the row below, just through it, not underneath a thread bridge. But then to start a new row, you need to be going up through this bead. But we don't want our thread to be visible, and if we just went through it, our thread will be visible. So what I do is, coming out of this bead, I go through the other of the two first beads and through that first bead of the second row. And this is basically what you're going to be doing while increasing each time in order to go down the middle bead or the one for the last. And then you go up this last bead, which you needed to go out of eventually. And that's how you increase when you end a row. Now I turn my work around because I like to work in the same direction. And I look at my pattern. Actually, we're going to need a lot more beads, as you can see, because there's a straight line in here. We are going to be doing this by using ladder stitch. So I'm actually starting the same way as before by picking up two gold beads, going under the thread bridge that I just created, and I'm going to go up this last bead that I added. But now I need to add, let's see, I need to add, right here, I need to add 3 more beads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use ladder stitch to add 3 more beads, and it's going to look wonky, but don't worry. So how I do it is I take one bead and I just go around into the same bead that I just worked, like this, and there. That's another bead added. I go up this bead, and trust me, that's not going to look nice yet, but it's going to look nice later. Again, I just go back through this bead so that the next bead is attached. Like this, and I go through this bead that I added. Now the last bead that I need to add. And I go back through it. And now you just need to go back all the way to the other side to be able to add the beads on that other side. As you can see, as I was going back the other way, everything got straightened up and it's all nice and even. So for this thread bridge, you add 1 bead, you go underneath that thread bridge, and you go back through the same bead, like so. And now what I'm going to do is, just like before, I pick up one bead, I go through this bead, underneath, and I come back up through this next bead and the next one diagonally. I go down the one to the last bead and up that last one that I added. And again, I need to add 3 more beads. This time I'm not going to be coming back through them, but I'm going to start a new row when I finished this one. Now once you're done adding the beads on the other side, you will probably end up with your thread coming not out of the last bead, but the one next to the last, which is alright because now in our pattern we have decreasing number of beads, which is actually good because what you can do now, and as you can see, we're going to be adding one gold and then a white one. So I pick up one gold bead and one white bead. And what I do is I go under the thread bridge that is towards the center of the piece. Now what I want to do is to secure the gold bead that was added, which I do simply by going through it, and it's best if you go underneath the first thread bridge and then up the white one. Okay, now I'm just going to be adding beads according to the pattern. So now it's gold one, and I again go under this thread bridge and then through this bead like so, and another gold, and I just continue until I've reached this last bead in this row. And to decrease at the end of your row, you basically don't need to do anything, you just don't add the extra bead that you would if you wanted to increase the number of beads. Okay, so I'm just gonna go along and I'm gonna come back to you when I finish this row. Okay, now that was my last bead in this row. I turn my work over. And now how to decrease, because the next row, as you can see, has fewer beads. So again, I start with 2 beads on my thread, which are going to be one gold and one white. And I skip this first thread bridge and I go under the next one. So under the second one in here. And I go back up through the second bead. And then I just align them by going down the first one and again back up through the second one. And here we are, all nice and lined up. And this is how you decrease when starting a new row. Okay, now I'm just going to continue on my pattern. I'll continue adding new beads up until the point where I have to increase. And I'll just show you again how to increase on brick stitch. Okay, so I'm right here. It's time to increase by 1. And I'm starting my new row by adding 2 beads. And as you can see, my thread is coming out of the last bead in the previous row. So I add 2 beads, which is 1 gold and 1 white, just as my pattern suggests. And to increase, I go under the first thread bridge in the previous row. And well, that's it. That's how you increase when you start a row. Now I'll add the rest of the beads in this row as usual. And just like in the beginning, I need to add one more gold bead. And what I do is I go through the last bead in the previous row like this. And then I go up through the next bead and diagonally through the bead in this new row that I added. And then down the bead that's next to the last, and up through the last bead. And this is how you increase when you finish your row. Again, now it's several rows of decreasing, then one increase, and then decreasing towards the very end. And I'll meet you there to attach the chain. As you can see, I'm nearly done. That was fairly quick, and this is where you're going to need your size 15 beads. For the last bead in this beautiful tree, you're going to add one Toho Treasure bead, but you're not going to do anything about it just yet. You're just going to pick up 5 size 15 beads, like so. And you're going to go back through that Toho Treasure bead underneath the thread bridge and back up and through the loop that you made with size 15 beads. Now as you go down, I go through the other Toho Treasure bead, and just to be sure, I just make another way up and go through all the size 15 beads over again for the third time. Now to finish this thread, you just need to go several beads down, and I like to go towards the center to be able to hide the thread better. And what I do is I just take hold of some of the thread between the beads with my needle. I make a loop, I go through the loop. There's my loop. I go through this loop and I pull tight. And I go through some more beads. Just like that. Now I can cut off the excess thread. And now I'll proceed to add a loop on the other side of my tree. This time I'm not going to add a single Toho Treasures bead. Since this is the bottom of the tree, it doesn't need to be pointy. So I just take 5 size 15 beads. And I just go around. I go down this Toho Treasure bead and up the next one. And just one more time to be sure. there. I finish off my thread, just like before. Okay, our tree is done. All we need to do now is to attach it to a chain and add a clasp. So what I'm going to need additionally at this point is a ruler to see how much chain you need, and my wrist is 6¼ inches, about that. So I'm going to measure the bracelet against that. You're also going to need something to cut your chain. For the more delicate chains, you can even use your scissors, though you may blunt them. You are also going to need something to open and close your rings, although you can do it with your fingers if they're thin enough. Right, I have my jump ring open. So I just bring the tree up and put the ring through the loop that I created. And I also add the chain. There it is. Now to close the loop. And try to close it as tight as you can so that no thread can go through these wires. So that's one side. Now I want my tree to be roughly in the middle of my bracelet, so I just place it around there. I just leave some room for another ring to be attached, and I cut my chain around where I want the bracelet to end. Okay, so one half is done. Now another jump ring. And now I'm attaching it to the other end of my tree, like this, and I take the end of the chain and add it on here. Closing the ring. Almost done. Now I measure the bracelet against the end that I cut at the end of the length. And I see how much more do I need on the other side. And I cut right there at 0. Or just a little bit before, because we're going to add another jump ring here. And now I'll add a jump ring on both ends of the chain. And on this end, I'm also going to attach my clasp. And that's it. Remember, if it comes out too short, you can always add more jump rings on this free end. And that's your bracelet. Stay tuned for the next tutorial in which I will show you how to make cute little matching star earrings. So that's our tutorial. All of the supplies and more can be found at eurekacrystalbeads.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!